Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today and a very warm welcome to the fourth episode of Studio SML Sessions, a match made in design. This event is presented by the Press Room and is supported by the Design Singapore Council and the National Design Centre. I'm Felicia from the Design Singapore Council and I will be your MC for today. Today's Studio SML session, a match made in design, will feature 3 design practices that are fronted by husband and wife teams. Each practice will be taking some time to share a little more about themselves, their working dynamics, and key projects in the first half of the session, and we will close things off with a panel discussion and an audience Q&A segment in the later half. And with that, it's now my absolute pleasure to present our speakers for today. First up, we have Victor Lee and Jacqueline Yeo, co-founders of Plystudio Architects. Plystudio Architects is a design-driven architectural practice based in Singapore that operates across all building scales within the fields of interiors, architecture, and urbanism. Joining us is also Timo Wong, co-founder and one half of Studio Juju, a Singapore-based design office which designs with fresh perspectives, emotional connection, and a thoughtful consideration of human experiences. And last but definitely not the least, representing OuterEdit, we have director Shermin Tan. OuterEdit is a branding and creative agency based in Singapore that helps brands create meaningful and impactful stories to connect with the community in unexpected ways. So without further ado, I will now be handing the time over to Kelly Cheng, our moderator for today, to officially kickstart the session. Kelly is also the brains behind Studio SML and the creative director and founder of The Press Room, a publishing and design consultancy. So Kelly, over to you, please.
Hi, thanks. Welcome to another session of Studio SML talk session. This talk session is an extension of our Studio SML platform that hopes to document stories of local creatives. And this talk session, which hopefully will become physical soon, is actually what we hope to bring the design community together for discussions and also discourse about our design community. So anyway, without much further ado, I want to introduce the first husband and wife team for today. They are also my very good friends, so really happy to have them. Plystudio Architects. They are a husband and wife team, Victor and Jack. Also my drinking kaki, hello. They have been exploring methodologies of how a 2-person team can scale up to handle big projects. Find out why they make the choice to manage systems of work rather than manage people in crafting their architecture. So over to you, Jack and Vic.
Right. Sharing the talk with me today is my partner, Jacqueline. As Felicia rightly mentioned just now, based on the short introduction, we are Plystudio Architects and we are based in Singapore, working across interiors, architecture, and urbanism. Our name Ply actually is a bit of a misconception because it's not really to do so much with the material plywood, but really stands for the practice of Lee and Yo, which are our family names, and really to trying to get into the whole idea of applying a trade and suggesting also a return to the fundamentals of practice and also to hone our craft in building. Perhaps a little bit about ourselves to ground the work that we'll be showing later. We will be showing a series of 4 projects to hopefully try and discuss some of the earlier mentioned systems of design and methodologies of design that Kelly mentioned. We started basically with the kind of our representation as one of Singapore's 20 creatives in the 2008 Venice Biennale, which is entitled Super Garden. So each of the presenters were told to bring an object to be exhibited. We didn't want to just take like a model of a complete model. We really wanted to bring across to the table a series of little objects that could also cross-reference our own projects. So we stripped apart one of the elements from our own interiors project, and then together with some fragments of the other projects that we have, we decided to create a picnic basket and hopefully to extend that across the garden environment and to try and elicit some sort of a conversation going on. Today we have basically grown in terms of our experience and in terms of our kind of working with various scales and genres and typologies of projects to encompass institutional to residential to private homes and so on and so forth. How we work, really we are grounded by three kind of anchors and key activities: positioning, research, and design. And we're always interested to examine some of the subsequent back and forths between these three aspects, which really can be seen to be evident in our works, which we will talk about later through the 4 projects. Perhaps as a starting point, one of our very early projects, which was done in association with a firm that we used to be part of, is the project for a housing project in Sanya in Hainan Island. So basically looking at this kind of models, model in terms of the production of the design through models, very rough models, and then the finished model here, it's really grounded in our kind of attempt to break down information and to relook at data, and in doing so, trying to create the building forms out of there. In this case, the entire design and research in terms of the data gathering also started from an Excel spreadsheet where we tried to look at how conventional towers can be redistributed across an entire kind of horizontal strata, and then to use the numbers to give rise to the building forms. And making the models as well was quite interesting, because we also realized that by looking at how the one quadrant of the building can be reflected, you can really see how we are trying to find in a way the economies of design and economies of scale that we were trying to talk about. So in the early days, projects like that really took off from there. Something smaller where we started working on an interior project for the old Design Singapore. There's like a small office in the old Mika building, looking at the repetition of simple forms and objects to see how we can use that to define space. Never really straying too far from the original motifs, looking at how through the process of design and construction, as well as the articulating of the final space itself, how the forms could remain integral to the design. A small F&B project where, again, a similar family of forms, in this case, looking at a typological kind of starting point by reimagining new uses for simple and ubiquitous forms, to then try and define new experience modulated in the form of these arches that we also went through in terms of the process of making models, looking at materials, and then finally looking at how it can be built and assembled on site. And then also constructing series of drawings that really help to our builders understand the idea of the modulations going on. All this work kind of culminated in 2019, where we were cordially invited by URA to be part of the first group of small practices that were able to exhibit in the newly established AUDE space. The exhibition itself was entitled Building Economy. That was the first time we were trying to establish what a kind of methodology that we have been trying to work across could amount to, and very aptly so. The theme of the exhibition was also to deal with small firms and how small firms can use their kind of creative strengths and the way they operate and work to project themselves with bigger ideas, and eventually trying to work on larger scale projects. So in a way, this idea of building economy somehow came along, and when we examined the process that we've been doing, we also likened it or allude it to a kind of design economy. So I would like to maybe hand over to Jacqueline now, who will be discussing the first 2 of the projects that we'll be sharing.
Hi everyone, I'm Jacqueline. I'm just going to share with you some of our recent projects. This was a recent show gallery in KL. That was during the days when everyone could travel easily there. It's a sales gallery for a new master plan, right smack in the middle between KLIA and the city center. We wanted to use it as a means to demonstrate our clients' capabilities. Our clients in this case is a very large developer in Malaysia that also does a lot of infrastructural projects. So I think when you look at a sort of tabula rasa in Malaysia, for a new master plan, the first building that comes about in a new master plan is actually a sales gallery, and usually there's like barren land throughout the whole space. So our first strategy was, how do we bring the temperature down and how do we create a sort of context for our building? So we decided that one quick way to do so was to plant an urban grid of trees. And with that, to use that as well to inform a sort of structural grid, and to also hybridize these two, landscape and construction building together. And with that move, it was to try and rationalize the structure and the landscape into very strictly 4 building blocks that come together in a pinwheel organization around a sort of urban sanctuary. So the middle space was supposed to be as clean as possible without the sort of extraneous stuff that you normally get in a sales gallery. So as we started the project, we also used the sort of repetition of modulated forms to create our models. And as you can see, it started with very simple structures that are then put together. And these are some of the interior views that we looked at. And we then built bigger and bigger models to illustrate it to the client. And I think they were really excited because they were also going to be the builders for this project. So as we went along, we realized that actually our client also has a building capability of our precast factory. So this is the built project already from the urban sanctuary in the middle, and to see the sort of structural arms of the concrete trees within the building. We use the opportunity of creating this motif of the tree form also to talk to the structural engineers and the M&E engineers and how to actually create a sort of structure that actually encompasses all the elements that's required in a building. So the material and how we actually laid out the different components of the building down to the finish, and even how do we actually create very simple instructions for the builders to fabricate these concrete arms. So the photos on the left actually are the typical sort of building prefabrication plant that the client already had, and we really use that sort of like an industrialization to create what we really wanted with the sales gallery, which is what you see on the right. So through a lot of factory visits and trying to find out what's the most optimum way of creating a mold, a prefabrication mold, and to test it in 1:1 scale, and then to finally erect it on site. So prefabrication is also a form of economy in that sense, because the entire site from a blank slate to what you see on the right and further on these slides took maybe about 3 to 4 months, which is really, really fast for a building of this scale. So finally, these are some slides of the final finished building. I think we were really happy because it first of all didn't allow for a lot of other things to come into the interior space, like the M&E components, etc. And then everything was just very simply laid out, and it also allowed for the client's models to stand out in a way for the sales gallery. So this is the view from the interior, and then next is the view from the exterior. And then I think we just wanted to also have one from the internal courtyard. So within this courtyard itself, the repetition and the modular forms of the prefabricated arms are very, very visible. So some details. The interior palette is kept very muted because I think at the end of the day, it was supposed to be more of a backdrop to what the client wanted to showcase. Some edges of the building that are seen in the daytime and the nighttime. Finally, some views of the final building from the outside. So the next project I will talk about is a school in Singapore. It is the Rainbow Center in Queenstown. This is done in association with the Architects Circle. So I think, as what Kelly mentioned, a lot of our projects are also done in association with bigger firms, firms that can handle things like submissions and paperwork and the whole record process. So I think we find that way of collaboration very interesting and also very helpful for our small practice. For Rainbow, the crux was really to find a sort of meeting ground that serves as a design framework, because in terms of that project itself, there were many parties that were involved, from the client organization to the funding organization to even the building organization. So based on the client's brief, there were actually not just the school component, there was also the fundraising component, the headquarters component, and of course the teaching component, whereby they had to manage a whole group of people to share their knowledge of teaching children and young adults with disabilities. So at the essence of what we wanted to do was to really reach out to those various parties and to kind of align with the ethos of what Rainbow Center represented, and to create a sort of sense of built form and space that everyone could subscribe to. So the thing that we chose as a design strategy was to break it down to just using the unit of a classroom and to build it up to a certain recognizable form through a means of addition and subtraction, and also of positioning it on site, on plan and in section. So it helped also that there was actually an existing building. The existing building was a very old two-story building that was surrounding a central courtyard. So in this new extension to the new building, we also wanted to keep to that courtyard typology. And I think that's this kind of shows the sort of site context of where the existing building used to be and the new building adjacent to it. In terms of the size, it was very similar in scale, although our building now was 4 stories and then the existing was a 2-story building. So part of the strategy was, by breaking down the units, was also to see as much as possible to return the sense of scale and the sense of the 2-storyness of the existing building back to the project. When we talked about that unit of the classroom, one main consideration was also how pedagogically the school decided to shift from a very monotonous classroom and corridor sort of type into more of a cluster. So with that in mind, the design of the new school could actually be a lot more manipulated, so it doesn't subscribe to the dark corridor and classroom type anymore. It's now more of a learning center. So as you can see from this slide, the typical classrooms were in the light gray. And then with the move to cluster it, we are able to then allow for these incremental floor plates shifts that also ended up with opportunities that are developed to negotiate some certain sort of comfort level at the facade, because the majority of this building actually faced west. So with that incremental shift, we allowed for these various elements to be plugged in as part of the negotiations of the comfort level, and also in terms of the light level coming into the building. So we really wanted this very filtered sort of light to come into the interior spaces, as you can see. So we had a layer of sunscreens that moderated the harsh sunlight coming in from the west into the space itself. And it also allowed opportunities for these in-between spaces that worked very well with the internal classrooms. You can see on these few slides, especially the sort of activities that can take place. And while we were doing it, there was also, of course, consideration of how actually it's going to be built. This was through conversations with our contractors who built many mock-ups for the school to approve. So as you go along, I think this was some photos of the model and the final slides, and to really then go back also to talk about the courtyards, whereby by layering them, the double-story intent of the original school is carried through into this new school. So I'll just move on because I think we're running out of time. So we'll just move on quite quickly. And activities that take place, so some events that really enliven the whole courtyard space and how it sits in the context of Queenstown. Okay, okay, be back to Victor.
For the next project, it's actually a project that we wanted to see how we can be using plan aggregations as a form of design economy. So this is actually a project that is not in Singapore. It's actually in Nairobi, which is the capital of Kenya in East Africa. It's a project for an affordable housing, and of course, being a Singaporean, going to Africa was really quite a unique experience for us, looking at the culture and the context as well. But what we started trying to do was to try and understand the kind of character of Nairobi as a city. Also zooming out to look at the comparisons between Singapore and Nairobi in the kind of global kind of context, looking at the cities themselves, understanding the built up, the composition of the spaces, and so on and so forth. And also in particularly looking at the issue of motor and vehicular congestion, which is something very much present in Nairobi city and something that is also very evident in Singapore itself. Then understanding the kind of growth of Nairobi as a city, the kind of gentrification and densification process it has undergone. But as a result, to sieve out the fact that there are also certain spaces or certain areas in the city that have been left quite forgotten, especially with our site as well, which is one of the examples of such a space in the city. It is actually in the vicinity of the airport, and it's about a 20-minute car ride out from the city center. Then looking in parallel with the kind of residential type, housing typologies that are evident there, and to try and see if there's a way in which we can understand or really break down and analyze the kind of housing model that is very much prevalent, and to try and see if there's a way in which we can import some of our own knowledge of design and of building into like a kind of different context that we're used to in Singapore. So as you can see in these diagrams, in these photographs and plans, that the housing model is very much driven by a car-centric kind of environment where a lot of the ground space is dedicated to driveways and parking. And this is evident in the two projects that our client has already built. So they are really building it in the same manner, in the same model of development. Compared to what we typically see perhaps in our public housing estates as well, where you hardly see traces of vehicular traffic on the ground versus what's really normal and evident in Nairobi city. And the unique difference, of course, for us is the use of the parking, the multi-story car parking structure, which is something that we thought we could actually bring into the context of Nairobi to look at how once the land is freed up, it can really be used to create more meaningful kind of open spaces and facilities that can then serve the residents. The constraint for us was to really work with the building floor plan of the previous two developments that our client has already built. And we sought to then see how with that floor plan, we can actually create some kind of meaningful variations by altering the orientation and the facing of the left and the right hand side units, which is now currently separated by a center staircase, and also to do kind of one facing out and one facing in kind of apartment block as well. With that as a kind of typical footprint of one floor plan, we can then see how we can string them together in the kind of precinct level, and each kind of precinct has the kind of use of a central open space that can be shared. Then looking at kind of geometrical processes to see how precincts can then be aggregated and multiplied to form smaller kind of centers, and then to kind of derive the entire kind of floor plan through this series of exercises. And then finally, just kind of ending with a series of images that capture the courtyard space, and then also the spaces in between the multi-story car park, which are heavily buffered by landscaping. Last kind of two small projects that we want to show is the idea of design economy equates to incremental differentiations. So this is a project for a covered linkway in one of the institutional schools in Singapore. where we tried to look at how, just by kind of creating small changes within a typical portal shape form, we can create a series of structural elements that span across from one end to one end, and to have a kind of continuity in describing the design and the geometry of the final kind of structure, which is not unlike what we are typically used to in the ubiquitous kind of landscape in Singapore. And then finally, to really kind of look at how it can even take on the typological kind of idea from looking at the how a tent kind of can be kind of manifested as a pavilion from one end to the other end of the bridge. And then finally, design economy for us is also the idea of calculated repetitions. So for a really small project in the same campus, really to look at how sun shading can be created in the library space. So we started by looking at the kind of environmental orientations of sun and light and so on and so forth, capturing the right kind of angles and really pinning down what is the critical directionalities to respect, then using that as a means to kind of base our design on in a very geometrical manner, how the angles of the sunshade really interacted with the sunlight, and to try and create the depth by creating these kind of sectional motifs that actually offered some kind of deflection and blockage of the harsh sunlight. So everything that you can see here is divided into 9 strips, which are all cut out from a single length, single row of fabric. So really just putting together 9 kind of repetitive strips together, we can create a kind of effective kind of sun shading for this library space. So I think that's kind of brings us to the end of the presentation. So as you can see, there's more. There's a lot of information that has already been said and really well put together, and we're really glad that we have been able to be given this opportunity to share our work through the Studio SML platform. So thanks, Kelly, and thanks DSG for the kind support. And then really at the end of the day, just looking at whether or not we have been really addressing this question of a match made in design. We are two different individuals. So I'm more of an introvert and Jacqueline is more of an extrovert, and naturally we tend to do things a bit differently. But what I guess we're trying to show today is how we have maybe through the years developed a kind of operative framework for working, such that it becomes a process of rationalization and plugging it into the system rather than driven by kind of our own individual kind of wants and desires. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Jack and Vic, for the insights into your project. Good to learn more about them, and you still need to bring me to Rainbow Center. Yeah. Okay, so thanks. We are going to move on to Studio Juju now. Studio Juju is Timor Wong and Priscilla Liu, also a husband and wife team. Their practice focus on product, industrial, and spatial design. They have also ventured into the realm of art recently. A 2-person team today, they will share with us how the power of 2 can sometimes be much more effective than a big team in the process of making design. So over to you, Timor.
Hi, hello everybody. Hey, thanks Kelly for the introduction. Studio Juju is basically me and Priscilla, my wife, my partner. And the studio has always been the 2 of us with additional staff. On and off, we have staff and we have some interns working for us. And our interest is, I would say, sometimes a little bit of design, art, very technical way of resolving, our artwork. Of course, it's a functional artwork, furnitures, interior spaces, and we started in 2009, and we met at work, and then we have some camaraderie at work, and somehow our previous employer told us that hey, maybe we should work together. So we started thinking about how we can actually exhibit some of our work, our own creation in Milan. So that was like more than 10 years ago. So we left our full-time job, and then we started, using all our hard-earned money and to rent a space in a Milan Design Week, a space in the fair, and we spent a lot of money making prototypes, showing our work in an exhibition. Most designers shows their work in this exhibition, thinking about which producer, which furniture brand I can attract, and then maybe these pieces that I have made, the prototype is being produced eventually. So we had this dream back then when we first started, naive, fresh, without much trouble around us. There's no business or financial trouble. It's just like all life saving. Let's just do it. Let's just make this, do this, and then make it happen. But what exactly is going to happen, we do not know. So at that point of time, we were quite fresh in that sense. So we really put in a lot of hard work. We really had a lot of fun making prototypes, showing them Milan Fair for 3 years actually. So we got some press, we got some kind of recognition. Eventually, after 3 years, we got an award. That's where we were awarded this Designers of the Future by Design Miami. So the award is given to young designers that practice in a way that shows a certain discourse in modern contemporary furniture design or object design. So we're given that award, and we were asked to design an installation. So at that point of time, that was like the first paid commission that we ever get. And we were happy that we didn't, screw up. It was a nice installation at the end, which I'll share with you later. So the forming of the studio, it really began there. And working together in the beginning wasn't so easy. We have our own separate thinking, our own separate, way of perceiving what we envision in each project, each design. But over the first few years of working together, however, I think we traveled together. We look at the same thing, and then we start to, work in a way that we both start to think alike. We both start to see the same thing, and we visit a lot of museums together. And eventually, after a few years, we got together. So we didn't start off as a life partner. We started off as a working partner. So that the synergy that we have kind of brought us to, continue working together in a way that we have a relationship, and then we have a working relationship all together as one. There is no work-life balance. There is no work is work. After 6 is life. It's all together. Up to now, when we have a child, we already have a child. Work and life is still very much gel together. But I think naturally we enjoy doing what we do, and we have always kept the process creative and not mundane, and just solving problems. So I think we enjoyed the work so much that we could talk about work even when we are cooking and when we are child, but we don't exactly sit in front of a computer. So this is our first office, which we first started. We put in a lot of money into renovating it. Even my mom came to clean the place for us. And in the first few years of our time, it was quite really a leap of faith. The rental of the space is really not very high, but there were a few months that we really became very dry financially, and then we have to kind of ask the landlord to can I pay you this month's rental. So it was really a matter of survival at that time. But fortunately, we were so lucky that after we came back from Switzerland and we exhibited in the Design Miami exhibition, we were commissioned with a few projects. So that kept us going, and fortunately, we are still around. So this is the first project where we did the first Milan Fair that we participated in. Priscilla is someone who is quite hands-on in terms of model making. She enjoys making a lot of model. For myself, I usually make the final prototype. So there's a lot of refinement in terms of its technical details are all done by me. And she's the one who usually makes a lot of models, and she explores the form and shape. So this is something that is quite unique in the sense that it's a collection of small tables that are meant to be put together in many different configurations. So this was what we've shown in Milan in 2009. And eventually it was produced by this Italian brand called Living Divani. So up to now, it's still in production. So every time Living Divani sells a sofa, someone will buy a couple of this table to pair with the sofa. And in the first few years, we did some exploration with lamps as well. So during that first few years, I think our design thinking and our design so-called philosophy kind of start to synergize and start to have this same train of thought in rethinking about typologies, about how the form of things are being shaped, and how we could use function to determine a certain form. So this is a dark lamp and a crane lamp. The one on the right crane lamp is tall and it has an articulative arm. So articulative head. So the movement of the lamp is actually restricted by its very limited angle. So it's something that's quite characterful, quite cartoon. And this was what we did for Design Miami. So it was really an idea of about creating a space, an intervention of, we were given a brief, which is having conversation. So the brief was conversation. So to interpret conversation, we are thinking that, to have a conversation is not something that you force someone to have or put people together and, force them to communicate. And so we did an installation of a space that is delineated with lines, and then you're free to come in and go out. So it's really quite an abstract way of defining that brief. So this is what I did in Switzerland in the beginning. And yeah, we are now, married, we have a child, and work still carry on. Although our work and life is, kind of together, but we still, try to have very well compartmentalized time that we give to our son. Okay, maybe I'll share with you a few projects that I think is, in a way, punctuates a certain timeline in Studio Juju when it's formed until now. So in the beginning, we had a commission, which is by Gardens by the Bay, to redesign the seating experience in Gardens by the Bay. So when it first opened in the beginning, it was, they bought a lot of furniture in a haste. So a lot of the furnitures that they bought, which are outdoor furnitures, are not really meant to be in a tropical climate. So a lot of them, very quickly, they warp and they are spoiled. So they asked us to reinterpret, what is the sitting experience in the garden. So we came out with a few version of how the sitting experience could be in gardens, and they are all contextually designed to be working together with the context of the garden in an architectural way. So the landscape, which are already done, we try to reinterpret how these benches could be introduced into the space. And also, I think one of the main thing about the bench that we did is to allow the banks to be replaceable over time if they start to warp or rot. So this was done to be kind of sit into this round floor feature in the garden. And this is something that is very long. There is a line along the coastline. And there's a backrest version. And then you took the backrest version and the long version, you put them together, you get another new version. And this is along the, somewhere near the entrance. So that's Priscilla and my dog. And this is a small one within the garden itself. And one there is circling along the planter. So we try to, in a way, round the corners of the benches, the planks, so that, when you actually knock it, it doesn't bruise so easily. And there's one very simple one along a shelter walkway. So this was the first project that we did that is a kind of public that anybody could, sit on it or experience it. And in fact, the very first project that we were engaged to be commissioned to do was actually an art project by LTA. So when we first started renting our office, which is into the second year of our studio, we were curated to to propose an art installation that is permanent for one of the downtown line station. So we were given this station, which is at Tampines. So Tampines Downtown Line, the architect was Green Healy. So they are expert in transport, transit spaces like train stations and in Singapore and in Australia. So this station was assigned to us, and we were so glad that this station has really a vast amount of space, which goes from the mezzanine to the platform. So the interesting part about this station is actually the symmetry. So there's a lot of symmetry in this station. The only thing that differentiates the station one end to other was on the left side there is a leaf core. On the right side there is a staircase. So that's the only two different things that you see in the station. Otherwise, it's exactly identical on both sides. So we took to the advantage of this station and how to integrate the artwork quite, in a way, seamlessly with the concept of the yellow wall that goes across one end to another. So we're thinking that maybe a way to intervene into the space is to describe how tall this station is. So we decided to do a very long shape to describe how tall this is. So in a way, when you're in the station, you kind of feel small, but when you have an object to bridge the relationship between you and the space, you start to feel that, okay, this space is about this tall because this object is so much taller than me. So there is this in between, the artwork becomes in between you and the space to allow you to understand, the context and the scale of the space. So this artwork was done in the station. So the station is underground. So this is a view from the one of the site, and we also designed a bench that replicates the form of the artwork. On the other side, we did a very big round shape, which is to describe how big and vast this station is. So when you walk down the staircase, you find yourself walking into the circle. And there is a nice mid-stair landing, which you could stand there and look at it if you have time. If not, it would be interesting to see someone walking up and then being inside the circle. So it's really quite an experiential sculptural quality that engages you when you kind of transit up to the top level. And also we designed a similar shaped looking bench. So in all these two sculptures on different ends of the station, functionally, it gives polarity to the space. So when you look at one side, there's a tall one. On the other side, there's a big round shape. So we want to give a sense of polarity when commuters travel, when they go in and out of the station, when they go up and down the station, they're able to see that, the polarity of left and right. Yeah. So that was one of the key reason why, the shape was formed like that also. So this is one of the view from the top. And yeah, right after this project, we had our son. And when we were doing that project, actually, we started the project in 2011. And then the project actually finished in 2017. And then 2018, we had a son. And I think having a son, having a child for the first time really changes the way we practice, especially our outlook in terms of the way we worked, time management, how much time you put into the work. Making a presentation like this today, you spend 4 hours on it, or you could spend 4 days on it. So it really gives us the perspective how to handle life and handle another human being. So this is something interesting for us as a couple who works and lives together. So while we have the baby, we got a project. We started doing interior spaces. This is not the first interior space that we did. Our first interior space was actually interior space for OCBC Bank. Later on, I will show you the project. This is a project that we did which is quite close to where we lived. So it's in Great World City. It's actually for a medical aesthetic clinic that that focuses on the beautification of the human complexion and the face. Is where you go to for your Botox and whatever. So the client is a really nice couple also, and they gave us a very open brief to create an identity for them. Not identity in terms of branding, more like an identity in terms of the spatial experience. So the client gave us a very open brief to create a spatial experience, and no specific preference over what it should be. So we decided that this is really a kind of opportunity to create something that is really distinct in terms of its brand and how the space speaks for the brand. So we created a lot of curved walls and then heavily textured walls to soften the way how light reflects off the wall. And the contrast is, if you are talking about aesthetic, you are talking about smooth, pristine, luxury. But then all we did was to give it very coarse wall. So the client was actually quite hesitant in the beginning, but eventually they liked the coarse wall because it softens the way how the light behaves on the wall, reflects off the wall. So I think generally both Priscilla and I, sometimes we consider ourselves a little bit of an artist more than a designer sometimes, just that we are both industrial design trained and we have good technical skill. So when we design this space, actually we treat it almost like an art project where we are sculpting and putting together curved shapes, straight lines. And the thing about us being industrial design trained and designing interior space is every single thing that we put into the space is for a good reason. It's not just pure aesthetic and the look, but everything that we put in is for a reason. Down to details like, can be quite boring, but like if you look at the top wall here, there's a black gap. This is where the aircon supply is. So we know for sure that we do not like technical looking detailings on top, like the air supply strips, all the light truss and stuff like that. So we want to hide all this detail. So almost like designing a product. So those walls are actually done to really conceal the air conditioning and the light coves and stuff like that. And this is when you walk into the rooms. So there are a few rooms that you walk into. This is the corridor. And unfortunately, when the client, after we renovated the space, just about 4 months later, the mall decided that they want to go for an overhaul. So they started moving like tenants around. So after I'm not sure if it's 4 to 5 months of their operation of business, they have to move to a new unit that is just a couple units down. So again, we designed the space that is kind of similar, but taking a chance to create another way of interpreting the spatial narrative. So here we are, this time around with even coarser wall. And we like how the light actually reacts on the textured wall. And we were a really, really good contractor. They managed to give us all the quality that we're looking for, where we try to soften like edges, corners, curves. Yeah, almost like a sculpture. This is one of the room. So right after we finished this project, we were contacted by Health Promotion Board. So prior to this Health Promotion Board project, we actually did an interior space for ThoughtWorks, which is a UI UX company that is from Chicago. So they have an office that's based in Singapore, and we did the first office in Singapore. So they somehow managed to visit the office, and the client actually told the Health Promotion Board about us, and then here we are working on a project for them. And it is actually to design a space for the UI UX department of Health Promotion Board. So we got a space that is of double volume, which has another part, half of the space that sits into the first story under the second story. So you get a very nice double volume height, which we created a lounge for it. That's where most of the events and gatherings happen. That's us. So we do a lot. We do a lot of custom furniture for our space, and we are running short of time. Okay. So I'm just gonna go very quickly to show you the project. So a lot of the project that we do, we try to custom furniture, we custom, unique pieces for the space as well. So right after this project, it is COVID. So we went into this 1.5 year of like COVID do's and do nots. So we spent a lot of time with our son making art projects at home. And then we managed to clean out the office. This is the neatest it can be. And finally, after like 2 years of COVID, we were invited by Tisa Chan to do an art installation at NDC together with him. So this is a project called Road Chandelier. So it's really about doing an art installation that kind of reflects the creative process, whereby the process is always a mess, and how we are able to freeze that process at the point of time whereby we need to finish the project. And the result is something like this, which we stop after 2 days of pulling ropes and trying to fill out the space in the atrium. This is the project we did. It's a jewelry case. It was sold in MoMA museum store for a while. This is for a project for wallpaper handmade a couple of years back, outdoor seating. It's called Chocolate. So basically this is like part sculptural, part furniture. Interior space for OCBC. We were initially contacted to do the furniture only, and somehow the furniture became quite an important part of the interior space. And then the client just asked us if we can design the interior space as well, and we did. And this was the furniture that we did for the space. Some chair exploration, interior space as well. Same project. Some furniture, objects, a lobby for Bank of Singapore. Yeah. Thank you very much. So this is what I have to share. And I think at the end of the day, having a partner to work together in both work and life at the same time is really great. Like today, I'm just presenting, just me, because Priscilla is off to pick up my son. So it's really great to have like, an extension. Of course, sometimes we do have like a disagreement, but end of the day, I think it's really about putting down your ego and, pausing for a day or two and then think about, what's the best for the situation and what's the best to handle any problem that may come. Yeah, so I think this is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Timo. Thanks for a very interesting presentation and sharing your projects. Okay, so before we move on to the last speaker of the day, OuterEdit, I would like to remind everyone that you are very welcome to ask any burning questions to our speakers. Just enter your question in the Q&A chat box, and then we will attend to your questions during the Q&A segment. We already have a few coming in, so more questions are always welcome. So, okay, now to OuterEdit, let me have a short introduction. Founded by Ryan Tan, OuterEdit is now co-piloted with his wife, Charmaine Tan, who is going to give the presentation today. And for today's session, they are the only duo who are actually driving a team of designers, as opposed to Studio Juju and Plystudio, who are really just husband and wife teams. So OuterEdit, they focus on strategic branding. And as a young design studio, they have gone from strength to strength. So today, hopefully, they will share with us some of the secrets of their success. Over to you, Charmaine.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Before I start, also just wanted to say, just really been enjoying the sharing. It's like really beautiful and thoughtful concepts. So, and design work. So thanks, Victor, Jacqueline, and Timo. Yeah, so hi, I'm Shamin from OuterEdit. Ryan actually started OuterEdit in 2011, and we're a creative agency that's here to help brands make meaningful matter. And then here's just a short video that we made for our 10th anniversary to show you some of what we've been up to since the start. Yeah, so for us here at OuterEdit, we just believe in ideas that want to be more. We believe in brands that want to be more, and we believe in people that want to be more. Ultimately, it's really the ones who thrive in making meaningful matter in society. So what exactly is making meaningful matter to us? It's the idea of making meaningful things and creation, but more than that, it's also about just making meaning matter more in contemporary society. So here at OuterEdit, we storytell through brand strategy, graphic design, and brand experiences. If you look through our work, you find that it's actually quite format specific, and that's actually how we like it, because to us, it's really about telling the story and then selecting the best design solution and format to fit that in the most impactful way. So whether that's print, that's digital, or it's a physical build or spatial experience, or maybe even like a format that we haven't explored yet, and that we can make possible through collaborations, that's something that we really like to do. It's what Ryan calls beyond disciplinary. So we're constantly on the lookout for new forms of expression, as well as like how we can collaborate and learn from others to make that happen. So clients that we've been fortunate enough to partner with, it's a range, it's gone from big and small brands, local and global, self-owned to public companies. So this is our studio. We're currently located at Bukit Pasoh Road. It's our 5th studio so far. When I first joined, we were on a very tiny, windowless old space. So I think this is the nicest studio we've had by far. And we share it together with our team of 10. We're made up of creative strategists, designers, and account managers who we call Waymakers. And we're just really grateful to have, such multifaceted individuals who are just great at what they do, game for creative challenges, and they stay open to learning. So like the video you saw at the start is actually created by our lead Waymaker, lead account manager, May, for IG. Yeah, so that's our team. And then within the team, you have 2 of us. It's Ryan and myself. So Ryan started the company in 2011 and I joined in 2015. To be honest, I quit my job and I was going overseas to do a master's. And I was just like hanging out at Ryan's office to do some freelance work. So we were already dating then. And how we met was that a friend had wanted to introduce us for 4 years. And then we finally met at her wedding. So anyway, back to me hanging out at Ryan's studio. So he had some jobs coming in and he said like, oh, do you want to help out? So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll help out for a while. And basically like, I never left. And this is 7 years later. And somewhere along the line, we got married as well. So, I mean, the question is like, is it a good idea to work with your partner? Is it a match made in heaven? Wow. Okay, Ryan and I will both tell you the same thing, but it is hard work. The way we view it is like, it's not a match made in heaven. Like, I'm sorry, we don't see a match made in heaven like a perfect match, like any match really requires like commitment, discipline, and patience to make it work. And a match made in design requires all of that too, and sometimes even more, because there are weeks on end sometimes that will be together 24/7. But it's a match that through this crucible of working together and playing and living and parenting too, we have just strengthened and deepened. So has being together and working together made our life more meaningful, then I would say yes to that. So there have been a lot of disagreements, tears and learning, that's for sure. But we've also had a lot of joys together. We had our baby as well. She's 10 months this year. And we also have 2 cats that we really love, Tobiko and Gray, and they keep us sane during the pandemic. Yeah. So just a bit more, I guess, about working together and that match in design. I think you don't go into it like expecting it to be a bit of roses. You kind of learn what it takes to make things work, and it's a constant process of just learning it and relearning it as people evolve naturally. But if you just focus on making it meaningful, then you really learn how to make it fulfilling as well. So that's a similar attitude that we bring to our work as well. Okay, so today I'm just gonna give you a quick flavor of what we do. If there's anything that you've seen on website IG that you're curious to know about, like feel free to ask later. Yeah, and here's some of the work that I'll be showing you. So the first one is the Good Intentions Calendar 2022 for RJ paper. And we did it also with our close printer collaborator, Allegro Print. So RJ paper actually has done calendars for the last 30 years. And over those 29 years, they've worked with impressive rosters of creators. So when they asked us whether they wanted to do the calendar, we were like, yeah, we want to do it. But then we were also a bit stressed about like, okay, what are we going to do to be able to make a difference to this print calendar? Beyond the functional aspect of the calendars being there and telling you dates, like how can we create something that will allow people to enjoy every day, something that's fresh, interesting, and fun? So what the team did was that they actually explored, and then they looked at the mobile greeting messages that we always receive from our parents. The kind they send you in the morning, and then the text is a bit, there's usually a typo, and then there's some flowers behind or some beautiful scenery. Well, just beyond what they look and sound like, there's no doubt that the intention behind such messages are very, very positive, and the warmth and the love that they convey when this is sent to you. So sorry, I was gonna say my mom sends them to me every single morning, so I feel the love. But anyway, how do we capture this spirit and do it in an elevated way? That was a starting point for us to go onto this concept of the calendar. So that's how the Good Intentions calendar for us came about. So we really enjoyed this project with RJ Paper and Allegro. Our team actually did all the custom illustrations, so really proud of them for that. Yeah, the calendar is just full of custom illustrations and Easter eggs as well. And I think what was nice was that, all the collaborators that came in just brought something to the table. RJ was seeing like what kind of different papers we could use. And then Allegro came in and said like, hey, why don't you, CMYK, right? Why don't you change out the M to a neon? And then let's see what that produces. And our team was like, okay, like let's try it. And I mean, we did way more test prints than I think anyone expected, but it turned out well. So that was something fun and something that we learned along the way as well. The next project is Street of Clans. This was an anchor program for Singapore Design Week in 2019. It was a district activation. And what we wanted to do was, we wanted to celebrate like the age-old clan values of kinship and unity in this creative festival. So Bukit Pasoh Street is also the street that we are on. And we are actually in the clan house, the Cole Clan House. And we felt like they had so much heritage, so much stories, but a lot of times it was a very close, I guess, community that people didn't really see into. And it's not that they wanted it to be like that, it's just that they never maybe had the opportunity to share further. So when the district activation or precinct activation came about, we were like, okay, what can we do to help? And how can we make this an enjoyable time, but also something that's really meaningful? So we start off with the concept of bringing together the clan values of kinship, unity, lending a helping hand. We created a whole festival branding, and then we also created programming for it. And we also matched up different creatives, to collaborate within the space of the clan house to do artistic installations. We also got some other creatives, illustrators such as Adai Spat to collaborate with the local businesses on the street, like Comeback. And yeah, there were a lot of other things as well. I think we had 90 over collaborators in the end, where we initially thought we would have about 20 collaborators. And this was the result.
What music is that I hear?
Something to try and make you feel at home.
Yeah, I think so what really made this very meaningful for us, it was just like making, I guess, design relevant to communities that otherwise would have no reason to actually interact with design. And, you know, when we brought in the collaborators and to work with all different stakeholders, the clients, F&B businesses, all our neighbors on the street, then they said like, oh, wow, this is, you know, like different communities that had never been exposed to each other before. And through that, I mean, there were also new relations that came about. So that was really nice. And I think Wei, a journalist from Len Dabao, he actually said like Street of Clans showcased the transformative power of design. So that was just something really nice to hear and just keep us going, because it took a lot of late nights as well. It took a lot of work to get there together with the team to do this. So yeah, really grateful for the experience. Okay. Archifest Branding, I'll breeze a bit through this, but this was the annual festival and we branded it for last year. I think one of the challenges for it was that it was moving into a native digital format, and that was the first time that it was like completely virtual courses at the height of the pandemic as well. So that was something that we had to think about when we were designing, you know, how do you create an identity that would be flexible, that would, you know, really be able to showcase and feature all the different speakers, all the different aspects of this festival, and look good online as well as through the different platforms. Then lastly, just to finish up with two projects from Millennial Walk. So Millennial Walk has been a client that we've worked with for maybe it's been 6 to 7 years already. And we're really grateful. I think over the years, the relationship has really grown and deepened. And they let us try different interesting things like, oh, let's build a Christmas tree out of scaffolding, you know, and they don't balk too much at it. Yeah, so we've done the Christmas trees for 5 years. This was in 2019 as well. And we wanted 2019 going on to 2020 to be a year that celebrated a lot of connections. And that was the concept behind this 13-meter tall Christmas tree. So I think every year for the Christmas campaign in Millennial Walk, we try our best to do something different, to do something that resonates for the year as well. All right, and our most recent project from Millennial Walk is Happy Park. So we wanted to create a non-seasonal concept this time around to last beyond the festive season. It's really in response to today's fast-changing world. And I think everything that's happened in the last 2 years, like, you know, how do we remind ourselves just to be intentional? How do we slow down and choose joy among any circumstances? And I think especially in the design industry, it's just so easy to run fast, run hard, and, you know, just totally burn out. And we've been there before as well. And, you know, it's not something that we want to do for the rest of our lives. So, I mean, doing such projects like the Good Intentions Calendar, doing Millennial Walk Happy Park, the wellness that one has to have in your life and the wellness that you have to have in all aspects of your life, like whether it's play or it's work, is something that resonates a lot with us, and is something that we hope to really live out in the team and as well as our personal lives. Yeah, so if you're interested, this is on till May, mid-May, and then you can take a look at it. So yeah, that's a bit about us. At the heart of it, we just strive to make meaningful matter, whether it's at work, at play, with your teammates, your friends, your family. Like I'm grateful for those Venn circles. They actually intersect for me. So sometimes that makes it easier. And I also leave you like a quote that one of our art directors, Adelia, mentioned in an internal meeting recently, and then Ryan mentioned it to me as well. It was also a simple one. It was just, how will today change tomorrow? So what can you do today to make your life in all the different aspects like more meaningful and fulfilling? Yeah. So thanks, Studio SML, Kelly and the team from DSG, Felicia, Hannah, and Cheryl. And yeah, thanks everyone who tuned in and spent time with us to listen to this.
Thanks so much, Amin. Thanks for the interesting presentation. Now may I invite all the other speakers to turn on your video. We're going to have the Q&A segment. We already have quite many questions coming in. So let me start with maybe the earlier ones. Okay. So I think quite a lot of people are interested in this kind of husband and wife setup. So the first question here is to all of you. How do you guys solve creative differences? It is already hard between just colleagues. How do you manage? So maybe we'll do Ply and then Timor and then Shamin.
Okay. I guess as I was alluding to at the end of the presentation, I guess we try to create more of a neutrality between the two of us when it comes to work and the creative output. And also because I think for our discipline, we do see it as a kind of objective and rational discipline. So somehow this operative framework that I talked about, which encompasses the various kind of methodologies that was briefly explained as well, it kind of isolated any kind of major differences between ourselves. So we don't really get really personally, I guess, emotional about the projects. It's really, just plug into this way of working, testing it out across the various scales of project to see how far we can stretch the kind of thinking, and then hopefully in doing so, we always operate on a much more neutral kind of territory without really getting too personal about things. But of course, we do have, we do acknowledge our individual strengths and weaknesses, and then we tend to let go if we feel that the other person is better at this particular aspect of the design process or whatever. So I think maybe, through the years, we have managed to kind of avoid any so-called major differences. Yeah, and hopefully we are on to something interesting, and of course we're constantly trying to develop and practice as well based on that idea.
Okay. Timor, how about you and Chris?
Unfortunately, I may not be able to answer the question or solve that problem, because I think in a very serendipitous way, both Priscilla and I, we are quite alike in terms of the way we approach creativity. So, but of course, sometimes we do have arguments about how to approach certain things, or how to handle certain projects, or how to resolve certain things. So we do have differences in the way we handle projects or develop projects. We do have argument, definitely, but at the moment it's easily resolved. We always use time as the gauge. We use time as the tool to resolve that difference. So a lot of times, for example, if we will not see eye to eye on certain things, we will just not talk about it, and then maybe a day or two later come back to it. And most of the time, I'm the one who will tell her, oh yeah, I think you're right, maybe just do it that way, do it your way. So I think a lot of times it is really about a certain kind of very personal ego and wanting to assert your idea or your solution, or what you think might be correct or best for certain things, but maybe end up it's not. So I guess that is really something to do with team playing. So in a scenario whereby you have much more like 10 person team, or you work in a corporation that has like 20 people, I think it's the same thing. Sometimes you just have to resolve certain things by listening and not talking over someone over and over again to assert your idea. So I think for us it works quite well like that. Yeah, to use time as the tool. But creatively we don't have like big arguments. Yeah, I mean we have more arguments about the child than the work. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Charmaine, maybe for you, besides sharing with us how you resolve creative differences with Ryan, you can also maybe share with us, like in terms of like managing your team when there are creative differences, how do you resolve it?
Nice. I mean, I was gonna say the two actually overlap a bit, but I just wanted to say nice about what Timo said. Yes, listening goes very far. I am sometimes guilty of that when I have a strong opinion, right? I'm just like, I'm quite sure I'm right? But then Ryan is equally stubborn, so that does not make a good combination. But thankfully, over the years, as we have gone through this, I think we've smoothened it out more, especially at work. Yeah, at home sometimes, new situations, but at work, yes, we smoothen it out. So it's really, I think, just respecting each other and then listening to what each other has to say, because there's usually some truth in each other's opinion. And if we really cannot come to an agreement on what we think is best, right? That's actually when, like if it's for work, then we will bring in our team to actually understand their opinions. And it's not a matter of like, oh, who are you citing? It's really a matter of like, as they are experts in their own right, like what do they see from their perspective? And then understanding that to then make the decision with more information as well. Yeah. Then in terms of managing the team, I think we're quite fortunate. I mean, our team, everyone is very nice. All our creators, I feel like they are open to any feedback. They're good at what they do, and they don't have any ego. So when it comes to brainstorming and working with each other, then I think everyone just respects to bring their opinions to the table. And if it's different, then we agree to disagree. And then based on, what is the brief and what is the solution to answer the brief, then we make the best decision. It's not something that should be subjective.
Thank you. Okay, we have an interesting question here. As a husband and wife team, how do you all manage the finances? How are the finances kept separate between firm and family or each other? Last time I add one.
You should know that better than anyone, Kelly.
Yeah, okay, come. Jack and Vic, maybe I'll start first.
So we were just joking about this when we read the question, right? We said that if this was entitled Match Made in Business, we will probably have very little slides to show. So luckily it's not, it's Match Made in Design, right? So we don't really have to talk about that part. But
the other day we were just talking about how bad our bookkeeping is.
I know. So it's interesting. I think it's definitely interesting to put it out on the table, because as what Timo was alluding to just now, like when we first started out, there is that naivety of really just putting your entire all your eggs into one basket, right? Everyone just starts out with this thinking that, oh, it's going to be a bed of roses, and everything is just so idealistic at the start. You're together, and then you have a practice, but I guess it's like with everything, there's always the bumps along the road, and it's the same running a business. So I think I don't feel that there's anything different in the fact that we are married to run a business together. I think it's probably the same even if you were just partners with someone that you're not married to. I think running a business is just so tough, especially as design practices. Somehow we do not have that DNA to deal with businesses in a certain way. So I mean, it helps that we are also life partners. So I think there's a certain shorthand in understanding in terms of our appetite for risk, our appetite for what it takes to kind of like drive the business. So, and also our individual strengths, I suppose, as personalities in the business. So, so I think from our point of view, it is definitely linked, like the whole fact that financially how you are, I guess, also is represented as a couple, both as couple as well as in the business. But it helps that you're a couple, I think, because you already know your sort of type of person, I guess, in terms of like how much like finance means to yourself as a person, if you know what I mean. I think it's kind of difficult to explain.
Okay, I think we got the gist of it.
Yeah.
Maybe Timo, you want to share about your family's money matters?
This is becoming like a Channel 5 money matters.
Channel 8.
Good at design, but not good at bookkeeping. For the two of us, I mean, we have a role to play, and quite naturally, we ease into that role of Priscilla is always the one who, look at the finances and say, oh, we need to top it up. We need this amount of money. We need.
Sounds familiar, team.
Yeah, so I'm the one who think, okay, how should we get the money? Do we do this? We do that? What project? How do we build client and stuff like that? We talk about this, all the time. And because of our nature, we kind of ease into that role. Yeah, and Priest is always the one who is, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need to pay for this, all the P&L and stuff like that. So naturally, she's the finance person. I'm the one who is working on the project and thinking about, how much should we charge the client so that I can satisfy your bank account. so we have this natural role to play. So it's quite complementing. And how do we keep finances between the firm and family? Actually, there's no how or methods. It's just two separate accounts. Yeah. So we just need to constantly balance between how much the financial health of the company is, and then how much you need to manage your family, your life, and then how much financially your company should be bringing in, and then how to upkeep the company, and then good enough that it upkeeps your life. So actually, it's so simple when it's a very small outfit. And we always talk about how to bring in more money and how to invest that money in growing the company in certain ways. It could be growing in terms of team size. It could be growing in terms of wearing another hat. So nowadays, as designers, we kind of need to wear a different hat already. So we're talking about giving design consultancy to clients. We're also thinking about starting our own brand. So we tend to do that, and to manage the finance of the company becomes even more important at this moment, whereby we are trying to diversify what we are doing. Yeah. So firm and family, very easy, just two accounts.
Yeah, keeping it clean is the best.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Shermin, how about you and Ryan? How do you guys ensure that your financial matters doesn't get in the way of the partnership?
Similar to what Timo mentioned, ours is two very strictly separate accounts, but I think also a bit of a different situation, because obviously anything that the company brings in is also money that, well, in a sense, is with our team. So that's the responsibility that we hold. Ryan is the one that manages the finances more, and he looks at it together with an accountant.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, the next question is, thank you all for sharing. It's heartening to see thoughtful and articulated thoughts behind the designs. What would you feel are some of the philosophy and influences that have shaped your practices? Okay, so again, maybe we start with Jack and Vic.
Yeah, I think in terms of philosophy and influences, I think it's probably also very circumstantial the way we have decided to practice in this way, and also to remain as largely a small firm. After kind of going through working with companies of various sizes, I think we naturally prefer a more hands-on approach to creating our work. We enjoy the autonomy that comes with the territory of running your own practice. It also kind of allows us to stay more sort of lean and nimble, really to adapt, to different situations and all that. So it's also a very practical way of looking at how you can kind of control your output versus the cost that you have to put into staff costs, rentals, and things like that. So it naturally developed into a way of working, as I was trying to share during the explanations about the various projects and the slides, that it's really developed into a way of working for us, being largely across the 13 years that we are in business now. Largely, a good number of those years, we are essentially a two-person core team working with a group of collaborators from time to time, interns and staff that come in and out. But it's essentially just really working through the operative systems that we're trying to set up, and to constantly fine-tune and hone that craft. Yeah, so I think that really has a key impact on how we work, how we design, how we think.
Okay, thanks. Timo, how about yourself? Philosophy and influences that have shaped your practice?
Very difficult to answer because both of us, we design together, and usually our conversations are not very philosophical. We visit a lot of museums, a lot of art exhibition, different kind of places. We travel the world together. We look at the same thing. A lot of inspiration and influence are, things that we see together, things that we experience together. And I mean, after more than 10 years of practice, we still couldn't, come down to this, what's our philosophy and the way we are being influenced. I guess it's a very personal experience that we have together, that when we're going to approach a certain project or certain design, or even the way we approach our practice, it's actually quite fluid. But at the same time, it's not loose, because we have a certain set of methodology, that design methodology that we have to approach each project. And a lot of times it's really about the context where a piece of furniture is, or a place that we are designing, what are the surrounding elements and who is it for. So it's a very industrial design kind of thinking. Yeah, the context is very important, the user, the experience. So we design with a lot of ideal experience in mind, what kind of experience each design would give to the user. So it's a set of methodology that guides us in our design. The outcome, the way it looks, the way it works, sometimes it's quite self-reflective, and it's always a recollection of things that we see and experience together. I mean, I would say it's experience that we have gained over the years, but to put into a line of what philosophy it is, it's quite difficult for us to, pinpoint.
Thanks. Shamin, how about you and Ryan?
I think for us, besides Make Meaningful Matter, which obviously anchors all of it, I would say it's probably the DNA of the collaborative DNA that started out when Ryan first started off OuterEdit as a t-shirt company. So what they would do would be, they would engage different creatives all over the world, in like Barcelona, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, and they would play creative ping pong, whereby one person would start on a piece of design work and then pass it on, and people would add on, and then they would mishmash it up. So I think just reaching out to other creatives and playing in that manner is something that has translated through even until today. So our projects like Pioneer Portraits, where we got in 23 other illustrators to do like a visual timeline along Orchard Road for the different Singaporean milestones during SG50, or even like Street of Clans, where there's collaboration, or when we do like when we do the hospitality suites, like Singapore Suite and Temasek Suite during F1, then we do enjoy bringing in other collaborators and giving them like a platform to showcase as well, whether they are emerging or whether they are established. So collaboration is something that also guides us in the work that we do.
Okay, thanks. Shamin, so there's one targeted question at you,
Okay.
or rather a question targeted at you. What will be OuterEdit's USP compared to other branding creative agency? What are the value proposition on how OuterEdit take on the creative path?
Like, difficult question. I haven't eaten my dinner yet. So I need some brain power. Okay, let me think about it. Okay. I would say I think it's going back to our anchoring and how we prefer to focus on like the storytelling. So, because it's focused on the storytelling and the idea of it and, how you translate that narrative. It's not so, as I mentioned, it's not so much format specific. So I think that actually is the USP, because sometimes clients might come in and say like, okay, can you do a publication for me? Or can you do a website for me? But what we go back with is, depending on what it is you want to say and who it is you want to reach out to, then that format might not be the best way forward for you. And we help them to realize this and also to make it happen. So I think that thinking and that journeying alongside with them then is something that increasingly we have realized that this is what the clients also come back to us for, and of course the relationships that are built along the way.
Okay, thanks. Another question for you, Shamin. The question is, hello Shamin, with a bigger team under you, how does the husband and wife dynamic come into play when managing your stuff?
Okay. I'll be very honest. I mean, it took a while for us to really find our groove for this, especially with a bigger team. We had some teammates that have been with us for 7 years. Hi, Rachel. Yeah, so they've been very patient, seeing us grow from like 2 people to like 5 to, and more than that. And it's tricky at the start, because when you start off and you have skill sets that overlap, you naturally just want to bring that equally, because you feel like you should be playing an equal role in the company with each other. But then as time goes by, then at least for us, we learned that, you play to your strengths as well. So even when it comes, I think, and I guess it's managing or leading or just really working alongside our teammate, I do think our hierarchy is quite flat. Like, we do know what our roles are, but it's not like the intern can't tell Ryan, like, I want to get into a brainstorm or conversation, like you can. Yeah, but sorry, my point was coming back to it is, oh great, I actually lost my point. Just give me one moment. See, like, no dinner is like this. Okay, yeah, okay. So over the years, as we honed it, right? So we realized that each of us play to our strengths and we have different things that we're good at. So when it comes to leading people, that's also something that we have realized. And therefore, you then specialize a bit more in that, and then you just respect the other person. So right now, like, Ryan leads the creative strat and design team together with our team leads as well. And then that's something, therefore, that I don't step into so much. When he needs to make the decision, then he makes the final decision together with that input. And then for myself, like with the Waymakers and with other aspects, maybe like HR aspects of the company, then that's when Ryan will kind of like see to maybe see is probably a bad word, but will probably like hear out what I have to say as to what I think is the best way forward. And he will more naturally just say, okay, like, let's go ahead with that. That sounds like a good idea.
Thank you.
Hope that answers it.
I'll give you a break now. Now we'll go to Timor. Timor, there's a question for you. Timor, thank you for sharing such diverse projects. What are your thoughts? Do you feel art and design are connected?
Yes, essentially, design is applied arts. So things that you see around you, I mean, they help you to understand the world around you much better. They allows you to engage with, the world. So I do see art and design connected. But if you're talking about the practice of design and exactly how one will approach design, of course, it's not just art within the course of work. But I think art becomes a very good or important influence in the creative process. So I mean, I say this because through the course of my work, I travel a lot, and I visited a lot of things, and I see a lot of like works of art and stuff like that. And I think it is important how it has influenced me, the way I look at it. And particularly both Priscilla and I, we are, in terms of practice, we are more inclined towards, practicing like an artist. So to me, it's quite connected in that sense. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about, example, if you're a doctor, if you're influenced by art, I think it does a great deal to the way you look at your practice as a doctor as well, especially if you're an aesthetic doctor. Yeah. So I think that influence is important. Even an engineer could be a great artist. Even an actor is an artist. So I think the appreciation of beauty that is just, is beyond, what is nice, what is not nice. But art allows you to understand the world much better, allows you to understand the condition of people, the condition of things and places much better. So I think it's important that, all of us, understand art a little bit better. So yes, I feel it's connected.
Thanks. I have a question for you guys because I also run a small studio. So my question is that for small studios, I think one of the challenges that I face, which I believe maybe you guys also face the same, is the retention of staff. In a small studio, if you hire 2 or 3 person, no promotional prospects. Then in terms of pay, we can't pay as high as the big studios. So of course, Shamin has successfully retained someone for 7 years. So congratulations, you must be doing a good job. But Juju and Clive, both of you guys are operating as just 2-person team. So I believe you might have some challenges that maybe you can share about, like, how do you think we as small studios can overcome this problem?
I've been arrowed to answer this question. Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because I think we probably have quite similar experiences that we have shared as well, and we do find it difficult to make people subscribe to a similar sort of way of looking at practice, if you will. I think because being a very small studio, I think in a way we become almost an entity in ourselves, right? So I think that could also be a bit difficult for people to get into. So I think for Shamin, it's very nice to hear that you also do a lot of collaborations with other studios. And then for us as well, I think we try as much as possible, even though as a small studio existing on our own, we try to collaborate as much as possible. So I think that's one way to maybe attract or to spread our philosophy or our way of working with a larger sort of platform of people that hopefully, I don't know, might find synergy in how we work together. I don't know whether it's a good thing or bad thing to stay this size, right? We talked about it. We talked about how as a small studio, there's always this push and pull thing about whether do you want to really grow to something that is bigger, because then you end up being more of managing the people that are with you running the studio, rather than being focused on the things that you really like doing. So for us, and I'm sure for the rest of the creatives as well, being creative and being like at the thick of it is usually the things that we find most enjoyable. And that's why we set up a studio on our own. So partly, I don't know. I mean, that's what Victor said. Partly is due to the size that we are and the size that we want to be, that forces us, I guess, to work in a certain way, to develop a certain framework of working so that we don't actually have to grow too big a team in order to do the kind of work that we really want to do. So I guess that's our way of dealing with it. I think maybe it will be interesting to hear from other people how they deal with it.
Yeah, actually, the question I asked was, it's also related to a question that just came in. Any thoughts about future expansion of the company through the addition of partners? So for Jack, I guess it's a no.
Unless our child wants to take over, which I don't think they will.
Right. I actually have a last question about that. Okay, wait, we'll come to that later. So, Timo, so maybe your thoughts about retention of staff and also any possible expansion of the company?
I think we don't have problem retaining staff because we always have one staff. I mean, when we first started, we just the two of us, and then in between, up to just like about 1 or 2 years ago, we always had one staff, and then now just the two of us again. And I mean, like what Jack say, we are very hands-on people who enjoy what we are doing. We set up the studio to to be able to practice in a way that we are very hands-on. And if the day do come that we are just managing people, I don't think we'll enjoy it. And if it were to happen in that sense, I don't think the studio will last or produce the kind of work that we are producing, work that we are happy about. So I don't think we'll be expanding. I mean, now the challenge is when we have projects, it's always very diverse. We have interior projects, interior spatial planning projects, we have furniture project, objects project, various kind of project, art projects. So we are so diverse that we couldn't fit hiring someone who does an interior project and not able to give him the next interior project after he's finished with that project. So we are always constantly struggling to hire someone who is jack of all trade. But this person will never come. So a lot of time we work with contract designers for half a year or a few months, or depending on the project, the length of the project. So we do that, and in order to be still very hands-on on every project. I mean, if the day do come whereby we want to expand financially, to expand our capability in terms of business, I don't think we will want to expand Studio Juju. Like I say before, that I think nowadays designers like us, we have to try to wear different hats. Yeah. So it could be setting out another business, running it together along with Studio Juju, and making things work basically. So, but to dilute the studio's work, not really, because it is with beginning set up to just be the two of us. Yeah, creatively. Okay. So I mean, we are quite fluid and free about it, but at the same time, we know we wouldn't expand beyond maybe 1 or 2% extra additional to the two of us.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Charmaine, so maybe now you should share with us the secrets of how you managed to keep your staff for 7 years. And also any plans for even expanding OuterEdit further?
I mean, I think staff retention, it's not an easy one for small companies. I guess, we've also had our fair share of people coming, people leaving as well. But I hope that everyone who comes in and, leaves us with something that they've gained. Yeah. So as long as they've done their best work when they're with us, I think that's what we really look out for. I'll get to how what we can offer as a small agency to actually retain. But I also just want to mention, I think Ryan has spoken about this a few times before, whether to expand or not to expand. But I guess size doesn't always determine success as well. We have been told that sometimes for the projects that we do, it punches above the weight, and clients are surprised to find that, only a team of then maybe 6 or 10. And even I look at the work that Studio Juju and Plystudio doing, it's just amazing work, right? It's just it's just beautiful work. So yeah, size really doesn't determine success. And as to how you can possibly retain people as a small agency, I feel like we're still learning this, and I think Kelly, you run it successfully for so many years, so we should actually be asking you the question. But the things that have worked for us, I think, is really just listening to your people, right? Listening to what it is that they want. What is it do they want for their future, so that they can build that future with you as well. So I think a lot of times what we heard on our side is that people enjoyed the culture at our company. They enjoyed the care that was given. They enjoyed the projects even that was being done. But the pace of the creative industry is very harsh sometimes, and you're just running project after project, especially when you're a larger, sort of larger company, because you can't say like, okay, let's all take a break at this point in time, right? You have to cover the overheads, you have to cover the rent. Even during the pandemic, it was really, really hard. You still have to pay all the salaries, and you're just looking at your finances looking very red and going down, and you're like, oh my gosh, like what's gonna happen? And then the pandemic lasts for 2 years, and you're like, are we gonna make it? So it has been a hard period, to be honest. And I'm thankful that Ryan and I have both been together through it, and our team has also really like pulled through it with us. So I think at the end of the day, yeah, what I think helps people stay if you understand what it is they want. And as a small company, you're actually more flexible. You can make that happen. If we, like recently, I think we augmented our welfare policies. We just asked around, I just asked like people who work for bigger companies, people who work for TikTok, people who work for, MNCs, overseas companies. I said, what are the top 3 welfare policies that you truly, you truly like enjoy and resonate? And so many of them just said birthday leave. And I'm just like, birthday leave is something we totally can give, and then we had medical benefits, and then we had like separate benefits for the team. But then I heard like, oh, flexi benefits is actually what some people want. So like, sure, we'll just lump it together. We'll give $500 out a year, and you can just use it for your dental, your medical, your welfare. So yeah, it's really listening, and I think committing to wanting to change. So even if the industry doesn't work for you, Ryan likes to tell me this as well. At the end of the day, we're creatives and we're solution makers as well. So if we want to figure out how to make the industry a better place, how to make it a place where we can see ourselves working in 20 years down the road, see ourselves working in it as parents as well, then we're exactly the right people to make this change as well.
Thanks. Jack, you can consider flexi benefits for Victor.
Yes, he cannot get the next bottle of wine.
You want to demand on birthday leave.
I have no more leave left.
Okay, guys, we're coming to the end of the session. I just have one last question to wrap up the session. So all of you have kids, okay? So what if one day your child come up to you and like, Ma, I want to be a designer. What would be your reaction or advice to them?
Great. where's my carton of wine to drown my sorrow?
Or you will prepare the carton of wine for your kid?
No. Actually, I think our kids, our kids have survived. So a word of advice to Studio Juju and OuterEdit. Well, our kids are already in their teens, so they have survived the toddler years and they have survived throughout. I think for us, really, it was really nice to have our own practice when they were growing up, because during the formative years, it was very nice for them to really be part of our lives. Like literally, they were taken along for site visits. They were taken along with us whenever we had to do snagging at clients' houses and all that. And it was a very, it was almost a seamless sort of combination of family and work in that sense. So maybe by osmosis, they are already in this like a design training from birth, and it's quite natural, I think, for us to talk to them about what we do at work, and I think they have a sense of what's happening as well. So in a way, I really appreciated those first early few years that we had the luxury of being able to spend the time with them whenever we wanted to. So that was very nice. So yeah, I think I wouldn't really say no if they wanted to be a designer.
Yeah, I think for me as well, I would just encourage them to go for whatever they feel is right, right? They don't have to be, in the industry or in the creative field just because we are in this industry. So it's really where their heart takes them and where their interest lies. So I think it's also for us a bit too early to tell, where each of them are heading. I mean, we have two girls, so yeah, I'm not really stressing over it actually. Yeah.
Thanks. Timo, how about you?
I would say okay lor.
Okay, that's easy. At your own risk.
Yeah, your own risk. There's no business to take over. At this moment, I've never thought of, whether is it okay, or if he say that, he wants to be a designer. I mean, as long as he likes it, as long as he's good with it. Yeah, I mean, at this moment, he's 4. He's quite creative with words. So he twists his words. He uses words on me that are, pretty creative to make me angry, or, to say certain things to me. I don't know. He's just very good with words lah. Yeah. So I mean, he does have a creative.
Politician.
Yeah, maybe politician. So he doesn't really like to draw so much. Yeah, but he likes to paint on his body. So I mean, as kids, you find all ways to, be creative. And I think it's important to be creative. But he doesn't have to end up being a designer or an artist or what. He could be anybody he wants to be. So I think this is what Priscilla and I both think. Just need to be creative lah.
Okay.
I mean, you can be a copywriter or you can be a politician. Politician also need to be creative, right?
True that.
So yeah, well, that's what we think.
Okay, thanks. How about Shamin?
I think she's only 10 months at the moment. So I think her end goal is more like, I want to eat the apple rather than what's my livelihood. But if she did want to become a creative, I guess maybe I'll ask her to do 2 things. One maybe is just do at least like 2 internships at different design practices, just to truly understand what it's like to be a creative. And then, yeah, make sure she gets really immersed in that. The other one might actually be, well, Ryan and Pixie have actually done this industry survey called Don't Mind If. And so I know it sounds like a plot, but it's not. I will really ask her to do this. And they've just released like the first inaugural book whereby they surveyed like the design industry. And it does talk about like, what the design industry is like the overtime, or like, do people see themselves being in here like 20 years down the road? Like, what's the pay gap between men and women? So like, if she reads that, and she is fully informed to make her choice, then yeah, totally welcome it. And I think that would be the same for like any path that she decides to choose. I mean, I don't know. I haven't done this parenting thing for very long. It's just been 10 months. I'm just holding on to the advice that my friend said of just keep your baby alive for 1 year. So I would probably look at Jacqueline and Victor and even Timo and Priscilla to see what's the best way to actually like encourage your child to just explore what it is that they truly enjoy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, all of you. I think we probably have to end now. We have kind of like overrun quite a bit. Thank you so much, Plystudio Architects, Studio Juju, and OuterEdit for spending time with us today. So now I'm going to hand over to Felicia of Design Singapore.
Thank you, Kelly, Victor, Jacqueline, Timo, and Charmaine for taking the time to join us today and for sharing your experiences so candidly with us. It's been so great to hear from all of you. And to our attendees, thank you for staying with us to the end of this session. We know we've overrun a little bit, but so grateful that you're still here with us. So more in-depth interviews with our speakers can also be found on Studio SML's website, along with podcasts on their Spotify channel. So if you're keen to find out more, you can scan the QR codes that you see on your screen. And Studio SML's accompanying exhibition, Abstract Creatures, is also currently showing at the Singapore University of Technology and Design till 1st June. So if you're in the area, do check that out as well. You can also watch a documentary of the project by scanning the QR code that you see on the right. And if you'd like to find out more programs about at the National Design Center, you can scan the QR code that you see on your right. So this is where we'll leave you now. So thank you once again for joining us, and thank you to our speakers again. And we hope to see you at our future events. Take care all. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.